Topkats Rebel Connection. My name is Otis Q. Pate, and I would like to thank you for clicking on the button and joining us here on another live broadcast from the Spreaker console at Spreaker.com/Topkats Airborne. And please stick and stay. We got a lot of more. Topkats Radio Connection. In discussion with you today about being aware of mainstream media mind control. A subject that should always be revisited. A subject that should always be taken very seriously. That is, if you would like to control your own thoughts. Topkats Rebel Connection. Otis Q. Pate here in the hot seat. Asking you one more time to be aware of mainstream mind control. That is, if you like to control your own thoughts. That is, if you do not like being mind controlled in program. For there is a healthy way, a conscious way of watching television, a conscious way of listening to radio, a conscious way of partaking in the entertainment of musical recordings, which are your favorites. And that's what we're discussing here today on the Topkats Rebel Radio Connection. Here in 2016, most recently, we had the passing of one of our great entertainers by the name of Prince Rogers Nelson. And that was one of the main things that got me in tune and in the mind frame to do a show about mainstream media mind control, because since Prince Rogers Nelson passed on April 21st, 2016, and not long before him, another artist passed by the name of David Bowie from the United Kingdom. And for those new listeners to Prince's music or to Prince's legend, Prince was an artist from the United States of America, from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Recently, when Prince died, under mysterious circumstances, and as of today, May 19th, 2016, Prince's cause of death is still to be determined, pending the coronation or what do they call the coroner's report. And that's when we will all find out, quote unquote, what actually happened to our great friend and our great entertainment favorite. Well, many of us, myself included. What happened to this man that caused him to pass at a mere 57 years old? Now, I know there's been other great artists that have passed under mysterious circumstances that has always been attributed to chronic drug use. However, I must say, since I start finding out about a lot of these things back in the very early 80s, I started to grow very suspicious when I actually took the time to investigate alternative knowledge and reading books that had to do with the case. And of course, back in the early 80s, there was no internet. Another form of media. The internet is another form of media, just like records, just like cassettes were, just like 8-track cassettes were back in the day. VHS tapes were, video tapes. Just like CDs are today and were back in the day, even though I've pretty much figured no one uses CDs anymore unless it's in their vehicle or unless you're from the generation that I am. Those of us who are in our late 40s, many of us still like to use CDs and we still like to use vinyl. And I even have about 250, I would say, to 400 tapes, cassettes in my house. Our generation seems to like to hold media in our fingertips, in our palm, in our hands to be able to touch it, instead of the media being online where you stream it from some server at a remote location or what have you. But to each their own. I'm very much into digital media. Back in the day, the type of media that I was just describing with the cassettes and 8-track tapes and all that type of stuff, that was called analog media. And analog media is something that I will ask you to look up because there is a different sound that comes from analog media that most artists that were born prior to, I would say, prior to 1985, those artists seem to prefer the analog sound, the non-digital media or medium, which we were very much used to from that day and age. Mainstream media mind control is something that is ever pervasive, and a definition for mainstream media is mass media that influences a large number of people and both reflects and shapes prevailing currents of thought. It may be contrasted with alternative media, which may contain content more dissenting thought or more dissenting of thought. I guess that might depend on who you're talking to. Large news conglomerates, including newspapers and broadcast media, which underwent successive mergers in the United States and elsewhere around the world at an increasing rate beginning in the 1990s, are often referenced by the mainstream media term. This concentration of media ownership has raised concerns of a homogenization or a homogenization of viewpoints, presented to news consumers. Consequently, the term mainstream media has been widely used in conversations and the blogosphere on the internet, often in oppositional or pejorative or dismissive senses, in discussion of the mass media and media bias. According to the philosopher Noam Chomsky, first name is spelled Noam, Chomsky or Chomsky, media organizations with an elite audience such as CBS, BBC, the New York Times, etc. These successful corporations with the assets necessary to engage in original reporting set the tone for other smaller news organizations which lack resources by creating conversations that cascade down to smaller news organizations using the Associated Press and the United Press International and other means of aggregation. An elite mainstream sets the agenda and smaller organizations parrot it. An elite mainstream sets the agenda and smaller organizations parrot it. And that basically was mentioned by me 2 times because I think just in that last bit there, that really explains the architecture and the justification for the mainstream media on how it's built and why the corporations do what they do with the programming from their productions. I think that pretty much sums it up. The mainstream media has an agenda, and there's only a couple sources that are tapped, I would say, in order for there to be news feeds and news information for smaller publications throughout the Western world. They rely on the Goliath mainstream corporate news outlets that disseminate the information, like the Associated Press and United Press International. And I would like to add to that Reuters, spelled Reuters. Those 3 are the main ones where news publications from all around the world get the news, which many of them haven't seen and they haven't experienced and they haven't been there at the locations from where these news reports are coming from, or where they have been compiled from to go to the Goliath corporations, which disseminates them to the smaller companies, the smaller news outlets. That is very, very important to remember, that although they are not there, they have no proof of what's being said or what's being sent to them, what they're being told to talk about, this information is considered true as it passes down through the avenues, the various capillaries, if you will, of the system, and the last people to receive this information is, of course, us in the public. And of course, since most of us have been raised on the mainstream media from the time we were children, especially if you were born, I would say, from the late 50s on up, certainly from the early 60s on up until today, many of us was raised by the mainstream media. We were babysat by the mainstream media. And so it's almost like everything that they say has to be true. How can it not be true? Many people wonder. Why would they lie to us? Why would they be using malevolent or negative programming on us? A lot of people would like to call that a quote unquote conspiracy theory, but I beg to differ. I know a lot better than that, a lot better than just believing innuendo.
Topkats. Rebel Connection.
Moving on up to the east side and next echelon. Woke up feeling like a brand new Decepticon. Today and now we're about to get it on, and I'm cooking with nothing but tough love and Szechuan. Against the odds while all bets are off. Gambling with gunshots and the next to fall, where they move like kings even if just a pawn. While I'm acing the midterm off a no lecture hall. Hey, this professor's old and his words are skeptical. We're only on the same page of the textbook. My brain cells are colliding on busy streets of chemicals. Graduating anything is anything but textbook. Most days there's nothing to show for. It's just me and an empty table at close quarters. A retired samurai fights for no one, content with the thoughts and clouds that flow over. But the day's different, call it a gut feeling, or a case of wide open eye daydreaming. Surfing the tops of speeding cars, weaving traffic in the fabric of the city while leaving buildings. Reloading my cannon just before I kiss it. Oh yes, this evil genius has a few tricks left in him. Even if they all say it's unrealistic, it's hard to wipe the grin off the sadistic.
Like a candle, we melt into the night like a ghost. Soon there will be a time when you'll have to make a choice. We have come to a standstill until you make your move. Careful, we are super villains with not much to lose.
This ain't finished, but I haven't left the starting line. I got more work to do than sharpen mics. This hip-hop is more than barking by sparking spite and respect, getting broken over hard and pride. You found respect was hard to find. The lack thereof, it isn't too far behind. From a place too dark to shine, we learn to hold on even when our arms are tied. A work in progress, a work in home labor, playing politics, playing our own saviors. Ghetto profits don't exceed the losses when even cops dress up as opportunity knocking. Saving the days like trying to catch the rain while you were turning in your cape. I was taking names, breaking legs, chains, and staking claim. Robbing the rich, singing money ain't a thing. Flying the city without a pair of wings. Flying on a bike without a pair of brakes. It's fair to say we got this arrow aimed like Hawkeye back from the dead, bone and narrow lanes. There's no deep breath before this jump, so call your second cousins, it's about to be a good one. Good morning from the hills to the avenues, entering the day with the fist full of gratitude.
Like a candle, we melt into the night like a ghost. Soon there will be a time when you'll have to make a choice. We have come to a standstill until you make your move. Careful, we are super villains with not much to lose.
Topkats Rebel Connection. Cooling out and throwing down the vibes, the tunes from the group called Laszlo Supreme with Scrolls right there. Laszlo Supreme with the title track called Scrollless. Let me spell that in case you want to pick that up. On our channel, there will be a link for you to go and pick this hot song up. It is spelled Skrulls. Scrolls, I believe that is. Topkats Rebel Connection. Edutainment wrapped in eclectic music. And we're certainly rebels with a cause without a pause. Here, asking you to beware of mainstream media mind control. And before we went to that vibe session, I was reading the definition of mainstream media to you, and they were talking about dissenting or to dissent. And for those who may have been wondering what that word actually means, I just wanted to lay that down for you in the form of the definition, which is to differ in sentiment or opinion, especially from the majority, withhold assent, disagree. And also, another definition for dissenting or to dissent is to disagree with the methods, goals, etc. of a political party or government take on an opposing view. And that's certainly what we are here at Topkats Rebel Connection. We often take the dissenting view, and that's just by nature. That's not just to be rebels or what have you. That is normally just by nature. It's just how most of us that work for Topkats Rebel Connection and the videos as well that we do on YouTube at Topkats Pride, that's just our nature as a bunch, as a group, as a clan, as a posse. However, in talking about media mind control, we have to keep it very focused, because this actual science that's used by the corporations, there are only about 6 corporations, large corporations, to where we get our information from. And the science that they use in order to put information into our subconscious mind comes from a man by the name of Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays is the nephew of the famed Dr. Sigmund Freud. Now, Edward Bernays is a man who has been called, or is called, even on his headstone, if my memory serves me correctly, Edward Bernays is actually called the father of propaganda. And that is not a joke. Edward Bernays was an Austrian American, and Austria is south of Germany. It's in Europe. And Edward Bernays was born in 1891 in Vienna, Austria, and he died in 1994 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, at the ripe old age of 104 years old. He was a pioneer in the field of public relations and propaganda, and referred to in his obituary as the father of public relations and propaganda. Mr. Bernays also worked heavily with the government, as well as even more so with mega multinational corporations. He was the man who was very much responsible for getting the public into fluoridization, to put fluoride in the water. He was the mastermind behind selling of fluoridation. Would you please pronounce that word for me? Thank you. To the U.S. public. Some quotes from the man is very revealing into his personality, as he says, propaganda is the executive arm of the invisible government. He also has said people are rarely aware of the real reasons which motivate their actions. As well as he said, we are governed by our minds. We are governed, our minds are molded, our taste formed, our ideas suggested. And of course, he's speaking by the way of media programming. Edward Bernays also was an author, and he has many books that I would like for you to just go to your favorite search engine to locate. Just put in Edward Bernays books, and you'll find that he actually started putting out books back in 1917, because again, Edward Bernays was born in 1891. So in 1917, from that point all the way up until 1986, he was putting out books intermittently, and they're all very revealing into not only how the man thought and what his work was about, but also what the end result was to him and what he was shooting for, what the mission, the goal, the resolve was. Edward Bernays. Please look him up. As I was mentioning earlier, that there are just simply 6 corporations that control most of the media. Although there are 1,500 newspapers, 1,100 magazines, 9,000 radio stations, 1,500 TV stations, 2,400 publishers, but all of this is owned by just 6 gigantic corporations. And gigantic is in reference to their power and in reference to their influence, and of course, in reference to the capital that they have on hand and, what the company is worth and all that type of stuff. It boils down to just 6. And as far as the news being received by other news outlets, publications in the Western world, it basically just comes from 3. The AP, Associated Press, the UPI, the United Press International, and, as I added, Reuters, because I'm very familiar with Reuters as well as the other 2. It's just in that report that I was sharing with you, they only mentioned those 2, but you shouldn't leave out Reuters. That's a no-no. If you're trying to be accurate, you are only giving 2/3 of the story. And I think most people like to have 3/3. They like to have the whole. Here in May 2016, the mainstream media mind control is more pervasive and intact than it's ever been in my lifetime. And I'm in the late 40s. So I've been exposed to, my goodness, what could I say? I've probably been exposed to at least 1 million different types of advertisements and forms of media through singing and movies and all type of things, billboards on the side of the road, and all of those things since I was born. From the moment I wake up in the morning, and I would suspect just like you, if you live in the Western world, from the time that I wake up in the morning, I start getting bombarded by media. Whether I slip and look at a magazine or a newspaper that's on my coffee table, on my bedroom nightstand, to when I, pop into the bathroom, I might flip the radio on. Or I might even have my Kindle Fire with me and I might be listening to a video or a radio show or something like that. Constantly exposed to media. And that's just within the house. So imagine once I step outside of the house, or as I should say, once we step outside of the house, what we are being exposed to. Yes, it is a bombardment of programming that is headed for the subconscious mind. Programming that that does not stop all day long. All day long, it does not stop. And I must, give kudos and much love and respect to those who have been able to make it into their 40s and on up, especially our elders that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s that have not completely gone insane from the amount of media that their subconscious mind and mind as a whole has absorbed. I think it really, really, really is a miracle. And so with the lead off of the show with those particular topics, we're going to get into another vibe session from Super Bubbly. Be sure to stick and stay here on the Topkats Rebel Connection. Who is really behind our mainstream media, you may ask? And I have an article here from the economyincrisis.com. economyincrisis.org. And this article is written by Ruth Patterson in May of 2016. And Ruth says, have you ever wondered who controls the media you watch, hear, and read from? In today's society, we spend over 150 hours a month watching television. We also spent countless hours surfing the internet, connecting on social media, watching movies, listening to music, and reading books and magazines. Americans are more connected now than ever before. It is great that most Americans have many easy access to some form of mainstream media. However, it is terrifying to think that out of the thousands of television shows, news networks, newspapers, and radio stations, only 6 gigantic media conglomerates produce 90% of the media we consume. Think about it. 6 companies are in charge of everything you see, or she should say, we see and hear. Our opinions and beliefs are shaped by what we see and hear. It is no wonder America is falling into a deep abyss full of problems and debt. What is worse? What is worse? Is it that there could be a major merging of these media conglomerates, leaving 5 companies in total control of what we see and hear? It's sad that most Americans still believe we live in a democracy. When I would say a republic, but okay, I understand what she's saying. But she continues, Our media is controlled by only 6 companies that push their own agendas by shaping people's opinions, making people believe things that they want them to believe, or possibly even distracting them from what is really going on in the world. Why don't we hear about the trade deals like the Trans-Pacific Partnership in the news? It's going to affect our everyday lives. Why don't we hear about the FDA is underfunded and is only inspecting 1 to 2% of our food imports? It's affecting our health. Why aren't we hearing about how many companies are outsourcing all of our jobs? It is affecting our middle class. What is really going on? Time Warner, Walt Disney, Viacom, News Corporation, CBS Corporation, and Comcast are influencing us too much. America needs to wake up. We need to break this sick addiction to mainstream media and start thinking for ourselves. We are literally being, quote unquote, programmed with these programs which we watch on a daily basis. And as I mentioned earlier, that is from Ruth Patterson. And thank you for that, Miss Patterson. That was very, very excellent for a summation of what I'm trying to share as quickly and as precisely as I possibly can within the time constraints that we have here. The mega mighty mainstream media is something that you always have to be aware of, because the programming is very, very strong, and it cannot be contested as far as how strong it actually is. Always watch programs, if I may suggest to you, with a consciousness of what you're watching, an awareness for you and your children, because the programming going on into the subconscious mind, which has been developed by Edward Bernays, is so strong.
Just stay with me home. Every day is like a holiday. Sleeping if you won't sit, relax, unwind and kick back. Yet unnoticed, and the weight of the world's got you hopeless. Nothing's greater, nothing's better. You just sit and you wait to come home. You got the fire in your hands, but the world's too demanding. Sweating blood to feel paralyzed. No more worries, let's get settled, baby. Lay here if you want to, 'cause you're safe with me, so just stay.
Topkats Rebel Connection, bringing back integrity, patriotism, chivalry, and honor. Here in May 2016, in the springtime, under the energy level of Aquarius, what you know about that, moving from Pisces into the Aquarian age, and that's why so much truth is being disseminated these days. It's because of the energy that is being proliferated by the times. And I'm just going to say, hallelujah. Beware of the mainstream media mind control, please. It's without a doubt that as long as we are dependent on the mainstream media for our news and to know what's going on, that we're going to constantly be bamboozled. Because after all, that's pretty much what it's been created for by the man Edward Bernays. And on this subject, please look up online the name Noam Chomsky and put in mainstream media with that. Noam Chomsky, N-A-O-M, Chomsky, C-H-O-M-S-K-Y, and mainstream media. And you'll get an excellent article from the great philosopher and author about the mainstream media. I actually had it on tap in order to share with you, but the time constraints don't allow me to actually go into depth about everything that I would like. So I just consider it part of the circumstances and karma, if you will, that what I can squeeze into the perimeters of the show is what should be said and leave it at that, unless I or we decide to touch on the subject matter again in the future. And by the way, if you would like for us to research and promote your music, please send it to Topkats, Topkats @gmail.com. And be sure to send permission, a little note giving us permission to be able to play your music like these other great artists have done. And that last artist that we just heard was called Mahogany Marie. She's from Atlanta, Georgia, with a song called Kickback. And the song before that was from Jesse Spillane, last name spelled S-P-I-L-L-A-N-E, with a song called Super Bubbly. Until the next episode, the next topic, I'm going to ask you to stay safe, stay conscious, be aware, especially of the mainstream media mind control. Thank you for joining me.